but he knew his mother wasn't home. The watcher could tell by the sound of the floor, the smell of the air, and the tilt of the walls that she was gone. His muscles had knotted with worry she'd never come back. They'd had to give him the needle every day until she returned home. Benny scanned the notes again, comforted by the proof that he existed. A part of him wanted to show her, wanted her to find his notes and see what he could do, but the other part was terrified. The watcher could see it gave her some comfort to believe he couldn't really feel or really know what was happening to him. In a way, thinking he was still a baby inside made her happier. She could hold a baby. She could rock a baby. She could love a baby. Benny clicked off his light and slid his feet silently and slowly along the floorboards to his window. Outside, Lee Road stretched out into the night in both directions, empty. The streetlights blinked red at the South Woodland intersection. Benny counted the intervals between the lights and the ticking of his clock. When they converged, a jolt of satisfaction tightened his fists. 15 cycles until the patterns intersected. He counted off again. A movement down the street caught his eye. A bicycle. Benny pressed his nose against the windowpane and watched, mesmerized, as the thin line of the 10-speed traced a long sine wave along the sidewalk, weaving and gliding. Then it stopped. Benny jerked back from the window. A figure got off the bike. It was the shape of a girl with a long ponytail. In the street lamp he could see her red sweater and brown hair. Pretty. Like so many girls he'd seen walk past in packs, and sometimes alone. The alone ones worried him. Where are her friends? Where is her mother? Girls never walked under his window alone at night. Almost never. He squinted at her through the glass. It had been months since he'd seen her. Screwing up his face, he strained to remember the date. It had been spring. April 4th. She'd ridden her bike up the driveway of the house across the street past midnight. The memory of it etched his forehead. It had upset him, then. His mother had come running into his room to find him pounding on the windowpane. He'd worried for several nights that spring that the girl was out there when he was sleeping, with only the empty windows keeping the watch. Aghast, Benny watched her guide the bike into the 6-foot-high hedge of bushes across the street, a bigger house looming darkly behind its trees. She reappeared on the sidewalk without the bike. That's not right, he scowled, fists clenching. Bikes don't go in bushes. Bikes don't go in bushes. A tall figure appeared on the sidewalk in front of her. It was a man from the size of it. Tall, thick, dark hair, big jacket. He'd come from the driveway. She seemed startled to see him, her body shrinking and backing away. The man grabbed the back of her neck. A high-pitched scream launched Benny from his chair. He stumbled back against his bed, incoherent thoughts flashing in his eyes. Bike, bushes, girl, bad Benny. He shouldn't have been watching. He shook his head back and forth, nearly wrenching himself into a knot. Another muffled scream hit his windows. His eyes swelled in his head. He forced himself upright. The watcher knew that grown-ups should do something. The grown-ups should call for help. He waited a moment for the sound of his mother running, for the explosion of sirens that would make him scream as they pummeled his ears, but he heard nothing but the house, aching under its own weight. Help us. Someone, please. He lurched up and ran stiffly to his door. Franny never locked it overnight. It was a fire hazard, and she knew it. He pushed through it and lurched down the hallway and then the front steps, knees locking and unlocking in awkward cadence as the screams in his head grew louder. Fumbling with the front door locks, he struggled to make his fingers obey as the muscles in them tightened. A low groan escaped the snarl of his mouth when he finally managed to get the deadbolt to turn. The night's chill rushed in through the doorway as he hurled himself down the front walk. Beneath the screams replaying in his mind, he could hear something worse. Grunting, a muffled drowning, a high-pitched shriek cut short. In the distance, a red car headed east down South Woodland, but the rest of the street was empty. Benny forced his locked legs across Lee Road toward the spot he'd seen the girl, trying to yell, "Stop! Help!" but only managing a strangled yowl. "So!" The sound of two bodies struggling against the bushes shuddered through the air. Terrible wet thumping sounds followed, an inhuman grunt, a choked gurgle, then nothing but the muffled drum of 2 feet running over the wet grass and away. Benny stood there frozen, his back to his own house, his head dipped low. The street had gone silent with an exhale of air. The acrid smell of stomach gases hung all around him. "Dead," the watcher whispered from the attic window behind him. "Dead, like Darwin the fish." He contracted into himself, helpless, seizing. The shape of him crumpled to the pavement. Dead. Dead. Dead girl. "Benny!" his mother called from the front door, a note of panic in her voice. "Benny!" He couldn't answer. He was gone. She didn't see him right away, convulsing on the sidewalk, a shadowy lump rocking back and forth, knocking against the cold concrete. The world sparked red and white as she ran across the street. Blood seeped out of his hair and onto the pavement with each crack of his skull. Scooping Benny into her strong arms, she whispered through panic and tears, "Benny, what are you doing out here?" She didn't hear the girl dying 10 feet away on the other side of the bushes. His mother didn't suspect a thing until a young police officer knocked on the door the following day. 62. The Spielman Family, August 12th, 2018. "It was Katie Green, wasn't it? Who do you think did it?" Hunter finally asked after reading Benny's broken account of the events a second time. The man took a few minutes to type out the answer. Ben, 33. A man, big and tall, older, not a neighbor, not that boy they put in the papers. "Did you ever tell the police what you saw?" Ben, 33. I tried. When I learned to type, I sent letters. No one ever wrote back. They must have thought I was crazy or a liar. It is hard when you look and sound like this. Benny flashed his crooked grin and held up his curled hands. "Wow, I'm sorry." Hunter shook his head and glanced out Benny's window, then back to the contorted face on the screen. The man's own mother had thought he was a killer. Ben, 33. Don't be sorry. I like it here. I like my new window. I see the sunset every day. A machine helps me talk. A machine helps me read. There is a tank full of fish. The fish are happy here. Hunter glanced at the nurse over Benny's shoulder, who was smiling at the sunny message. "Do you ever wish you hadn't seen what happened? Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you'd just stayed in bed that night? Or if you'd never lived in this house at all?" The older man frowned at him. Beneath the jagged scars on his face and the gray hair, Benny was still mostly a boy. Inexperienced, sheltered, shut in, naive. Ben, 33. Why wonder? I don't know. I guess I'm just sort of hating the world right now. Hunter felt ridiculous for complaining to a man with so many problems. He hesitated a moment, then figured, what the hell? He proceeded to tell Benny all of it. The history of the house, Ava in the attic, his father and the drugs, his mother with the gun, the bones they'd found in the backyard. Benny took it all in, wide-eyed, processing and calculating and nodding. Then he didn't move for several minutes, and Hunter began to worry the nurse would pull the plug on their conversation. Finally, Benny started typing. Ben, 33. Wow. Ben, 33. Where is the girl? Ava. I don't know. She left. I woke up this morning and she was gone. Ben 33. You have to help her. How? Hunter threw up his hands, exasperated. How am I supposed to help her? I'm just a kid. I don't know what to do. I mean, I like her. I like her a lot, but I don't really know her. I don't know what she needs. I think she might need professional help. Squatting in a haunted house waiting for a dead brother to come back isn't exactly normal, right? Benny leaned into the camera, his enlarged face glaring into Hunter's. He no longer looked like a boy trapped in a man's body. He suddenly looked older than his years. His dark brown eyes deepened into black hollows, forever haunted by the sound of a girl dying 10 feet away. A girl he couldn't save. Ben 33. She needs you. You have to help her. For me. Hunter shook his head at the camera. It was really nice talking with you, Benny. I'm really glad you like your window and your fish. Maybe I'll ring you again sometime. Would that be all right? The man nodded at the camera, but his eyes stayed fixed on Hunter. Help her. After the call disconnected, Hunter sagged back in his chair a moment and listened. The attic was still. The second floor lay silent outside his door. Down in the kitchen, he heard footsteps and then the opening of a cupboard. He followed the sound down the stairs to find his mother standing at one of the counters with a mug of coffee. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. The lines on her face ran deeper. Her skin had gone pale and thin. Her hands seemed frail and unsteady. Good morning, sweetie, she said with a pained smile. How are you feeling? Are you okay? She wanted to scoop him up and hold him like a little boy. The palpable urge made him shrink away ever so slightly. Yeah, Mom, I'm fine. Have you seen Ava? No. Did she leave? I'm not sure. She wasn't there when I woke up. Margot pressed her lips together to keep from scolding him about a girl sleeping in his room. She allowed herself only one of 100 questions. How long have you been seeing her? I don't know. We're not really. I mean, we're friends, but... He blushed a little at the thought of what he wanted them to be. The blush told her everything she wanted to know. So sweet, Margot thought to herself. I'm really sorry she had to see what happened last night, but I'm glad you weren't alone. She seems like a nice girl. He nodded and shuddered to think what might have happened if she hadn't been there to pull him out of the room. Yeah, she is. I'm kind of worried about her. Worried? Margot set her mug down and picked up a white cat that had curled itself around her ankle. The animal distracted Hunter enough to give his mother a quizzical look. We have a cat now? Why are you worried about her, sweetie? He watched his mother pet the stray cat, debating whether to tell her everything about Ava living in the house and her brother, Toby. The sound of running water overhead stopped him. I think that's her. I'm going to go check, okay? Sure. Let her know she's welcome to stay for breakfast. Hunter took the back stairs 2 at a time and followed the sound of running water down the back hall to the guest bathroom over the garage. The door was shut and the tub was running. Ava? She didn't answer. Hunter knocked on the door. Ava, you okay? He pressed his ear to the wood and heard a faint voice humming. It was one of her creepy shaker songs. Ava, open up. He tried the doorknob only to find it locked. Crouching down, he peeked in through the keyhole and caught a glimpse of her sitting on the floor in his t-shirt. The glint of a straight razor flashed between her hands. What are you doing? He whispered. She didn't look up at him. The razor turned and turned in her hands as she hummed. An angel whispered in my ear, the dead, they know you, dear. Oh, shit, he hissed as it became clear to him what she meant to do. Ava, don't! He banged on the door again, but she didn't even look up. He took off running back down the hall. Mom, he shouted down the steps. I need help. I think Ava's... She's got a razor. The door's locked. What? Margot stood up, alarmed at his panicked voice. "Slow down. What's wrong?" "I think she wants to be dead, like her brother. I think she's going to kill herself." "Dead girl," flashed through his brain. "I need help." Margot ran up the stairs. "Where is she? The guest bath?" "The door's locked. I can't get in, but I saw her. I saw her with a razor." "Go talk to her. Keep her talking." Margot raced to her room to get the skeleton key off her nightstand. Hunter ran down the back hallway and yelled through the door. "Ava, don't do this. You don't have to do this. Toby doesn't want you to die." Through the keyhole, he watched her study her reflection in the mirrored edge of the razor. "What do you see? Do you see them?" Margot pushed past him and rattled the key into the lock. "Ava?" she shouted through the wood. "Drop the razor, honey. Just think about what you're doing. This isn't the answer." The door swung open, and Ava shrank against the wall, still gripping the steel. "Hey!" Margot stood in the doorway a minute, then turned off the running water. The tub was full and spilling into the overflow drain. "Ava? Look at me." Ava didn't take her eyes off the blade. "I don't want to be here anymore," she whispered. "I know." Margot crouched down and crawled halfway to where the girl sat curled into a corner. "I know how that feels. I do. But there are other places you can go. This isn't the only way out." "I don't have anywhere else to go." Ava's empty gaze drifted over to Hunter's feet, standing in the doorway. "I miss him so much." "I know you do." Margot nodded, taking inventory of what Hunter had said. "I think she wants to be dead, like her brother." "I know it hurts. I lost someone too, and it hurts so much I wanted to die." Ava finally looked up at her. "Why didn't you?" Margot breathed a laugh as tears welled up in her eyes. "I tried. I was thinking, like you are now, that it would be better to just go away, that it would be better to go and be with Allison, wherever she was, that I couldn't stand to live without her." Hunter gaped at his mother. It was the most he'd ever heard her say about it. "What stopped you?" Ava asked, still holding the weapon. She was within slicing distance of Margot's throat. She eyed the vein pulsing at the base of the woman's neck. "Hunter did." Margot smiled through tears. "He knocked on the bathroom door, and I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And not just for him, but for Allison, too. It's not what the dead want." These words struck a nerve, and Ava looked up at her like a lost little girl. "What do they want?" "Why don't you give me that razor, and I'll tell you what I think they want." Margot held out her hand. Ava narrowed her eyes at the woman and gripped the handle tighter for a moment. It felt like a trick. Margot sat there in her yoga pants, just a sad, middle-aged mother who'd lost everything. Her husband, her daughter, her home. "I know what you're thinking. But what do you have to lose? If you really want to die, Ava, you'll have a million other chances. There's 1,000 ways to end this." Margot's voice was no longer that of a lonely and unsure woman. It was the voice of a mother. Firm, loving, unyielding, relentless. The sort of voice that had been missing from Ava's life for years. "Now give it to me." Ava handed Margot the blade. She looked so small and alone in that moment that Margot forgot she hardly knew the girl. She folded the blade and slipped it into her pocket, then held out her arms. "Come here, sweetie. Just come here." Ava didn't move. Undaunted, Margot picked up the girl's hand and held it between hers the way she couldn't hold her own daughter's. "It's going to be okay. We'll figure this out." Ava wanted to pull away and run, but she closed her eyes and made herself feel it. The pain flayed her skin and stole her breath. "What do the dead want?" she whispered. 63. A week later, Myron was released from the hospital and moved into the suite over the garage, while Hunter and Margot packed. They were going back to Boston without him. Myron had agreed to not press charges for the gunshot wound in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement. Neither party shall speak publicly or privately or give any written testimony regarding the alleged drug use or any alleged drug paraphernalia found on the premises. Margot, for all her faults, felt sorry for him. The divorce filing cited irreconcilable differences. Myron did not contest custody. It would take years for his son to forgive him. His attempts at conversation with Hunter since that night had been met with curt one-word answers. Fine. Sure. Okay. Hunter sat on the edge of his bed next to Ava. His entire room had been stuffed into boxes. The moving truck was coming in the morning. "You have to come with us. I mean, where else are you going to go?" "I don't know." Ava studied her hands. She'd spent the week in and out of different doctors' offices and government buildings, following Margot from one place to the next. Each one was a dead end. "No one else will take her, Mom." Margot spoke softly into her phone down in the den, where the kids wouldn't hear. "What am I supposed to do? She needs extended therapy. Do you think Medicaid will cover that?" "But there are no beds available." "I know, I did, but that cost us nearly $15,000. If we hadn't had the money, I have no idea what we would have done." Margot set the phone down and turned on the speaker. She reached down and pulled the white cat onto her lap. "Coco," she thought, scratching behind its ears. "I'll call you Coco." Coco had become her worrystone and constant companion. Her mother's nagging voice went on. "But what do you even know about this girl, sweetheart?" "I know she needs help. I know she's been on her own for years. I know she's 19 and no one will take her in. I know she's completely traumatized. She's a sweet kid and smart. She's just a little messed up." "What about Hunter? Have you thought about him?" "Of course I have, Mother. Hunter is the one pushing me to do this." Margot gazed out the window into the backyard. Outside, the police had taped off a grid and were digging trenches. The skull of a baby boy watched over their progress from inside a clear plastic bag resting in the flower bed. It had taken 3 hours of digging to find him, but Hunter had been in a state that terrible night. His father had turned on him. His mother had shot the man in the foot. Margot shuddered at the memory and stared in disbelief at the bullet hole she'd made in the far wall. "What good is all this money if we don't use it to help someone?" Hunter had demanded 3 days earlier. "Did hoarding money make the Rawlings happy? Did a big house ever solve anyone's problems? I mean, look at this place. It should be the happiest place on earth, right? But it's not. It never was. Is this the sort of life you want for me? Private schools, Ivy League, for what? To get rich and ignore what really matters? We have a chance to do something good here. We have to help her, Mom." "Hunter is still so young. He doesn't know what's best. What's safe?" her mother chirped from the phone. Margot smiled ruefully at her son's altruism. "It's just for a little while, Mom, until she gets on her feet and figures out what to do. If we leave her here at the mercy of the welfare state, I really don't think I could live with myself." "What if she robs you blind? What if she gets pregnant, for God's sake? I'm not saying she will, but you have to consider what this might mean for Hunter's future," her mother protested. "He's been through so much, and now this?" "He'll be fine, Mom. I don't doubt that there'll be complications along the way, but he's a smart kid, and everything else is just stuff. This is something I need to do for me and for Hunter." Margot looked down at the cat in her lap. It gazed back with those unearthly eyes. "I know it sounds crazy, but I think Allison would want me to do this." "Allison?" The name came with a held breath of air. There was a long silence, and then, Okay, sweetheart. If this is what you need to do, just promise me that if it doesn't work out, you'll make other arrangements. What about you? Are you taking care of yourself? I'm so worried about you. At the other end of the house, Hunter reached for Ava's hand. You can't stay here. You know that, right? It's not good for you to stay here, not anymore. But why would your mom let me stay with you? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know, because she's not a total monster? Because she wants to help? Because I'm making her? Does it matter? He scanned the room. The only item not yet packed was the photograph of him and his sister. It sat on the floor next to the closet. The two cherub-faced children watched them both from behind the glass. What if she decides she doesn't like me? I wouldn't like me, Ava whispered. This won't work, you know. I've been here trespassing all this time. She'll never trust me. Anytime anything goes missing, she'll think I stole it. She thinks I'm crazy, and she's probably right. And she's not? Hunter sighed. Who cares what she thinks? They're both so completely messed up. I want you to come, okay? Will you? Come stay with us a while. Think of it as a free hotel until you can figure something else out. Ava considered his face a moment, scruffy and awkward, but soft. The sweetness of it hurt. But I don't know if I can. I've been here for so long. This is my home. It's just a house. Wouldn't you rather be with people? People who care about you? Friends? All this place has is bad memories. Ghosts. Just, please, come with us. If you don't like it, I'll drive you back here myself, okay? Your mom doesn't like me, she insisted, and she wants me to go to therapy. My mom thinks everyone needs therapy. She wants me to go to therapy. So what? I mean, she's a basket case, but at least now she's not just sitting around obsessing about nothing anymore. She's going to get her old job back, and she'll hardly be around anyway. Besides, I think she really wants to do something right for a change. He cocked a goofy grin. Can't you just let her? He hadn't noticed the way Margot looked at Ava, a girl the same age Allison would have been if she hadn't died. He only heard her nagging voice asking, Are you in love with this girl? What about your dad? What about him? He's a junkie in denial. He's staying in Cleveland. They're getting divorced. I'll probably see him once a year or some shit, just like every other kid, right? She frowned at the venom in his voice. You know he isn't all bad, right? Like, addicts aren't bad people. He's just messed up. Yeah, tell that to Abigail Marty's family. Hunter blew out some trapped steam and softened his tone. I just really kind of hate him right now. I know. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her and felt her stiffen. Hunter, I like you. She eyed him cautiously. I mean, I really like you. But if I'm staying with you and your mom, it would be weird if we... I mean, I'm just so messed up right now, and... She couldn't put the rest into words. Hey, I get it. He squeezed her shoulder and let her go. He didn't dare let his smile slip or the hurt of her words show through. We can be friends, right? Right, she nodded, feeling both bad and relieved. So you'll come with us? She shrugged. If you don't like it, I'll drive you back here myself. Okay. Good. Because if you don't come, Caleb will never fucking believe any of this. She broke out laughing. The sweet sound of it drifted out Hunter's door and down the hallway past the empty rooms, flitting like a trapped bird into the attic. 64. House for Sale. April 2nd, 2019. Wow, this is beautiful, the young woman cooed from the front stoop. Her pregnant belly looked ready to burst. Her husband squeezed her hand and shot her a look that said, "Don't let on how much you like it." "Wait until you see the inside. The renovation the last owner did is stunning. Brand new kitchen, remodeled bathrooms, fully restored wood floors. You're going to love it." The real estate agent opened the front door and strolled inside. The cherub-faced door-knocker watched as the couple crossed the threshold hand in hand with their 2 children, a toddler and a 6-year-old. "Oh, my," the wife gasped in the 2-story foyer, her voice echoing off the ceiling high above. "I love the chandelier." "It's original to the house," the agent purred, handing them each a flyer. "We have over 4,000 square feet here, not including the basement or the 3rd floor, nearly all of it renovated last year, including piping in central air conditioning. It's a perfect family home and plenty of space for all 3 of your children." "May I ask why the sellers are leaving? I mean, they bought the house less than a year ago. Were they flippers?" "Messy. Divorce. It happens all the time. I can assure you they spared no expense on the renovation." The agent led the tour through the empty living room and the den and into the kitchen. "I believe the seller has already moved back to Boston with her children." The young wife stopped at an enormous marble island, not believing her good fortune. "It's gorgeous. This is exactly the sort of kitchen we've been looking for, right, honey?" "It is nice," the husband conceded, taking in the top-of-the-line appliances and high-end finishes. He did a slow turn, searching for something to dislike. "Nice! It's perfect!" his wife whined. "Wally, watch your sister, okay? Don't let her climb the stairs." The 6-year-old groaned. "But, Mom, I want to see the house, too." "Okay, kiddo." Wally's dad hoisted the little girl onto his hip. "Let's all go." Sunlight shined in through the large windows, casting a warm glow in the solarium. Despite his best efforts, Wally's dad found himself picturing Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas mornings and barbecues on the back patio. The real estate agent hid a knowing grin as she led them up the back stairs. "Now, if you're seriously considering putting in an offer, I should let you know that the house has a bit of a history." "What history?" The man scowled, stopping the tour in the long hallway outside Hunter's old room. Wally ran past him into the bedroom and started spinning in circles by the fireplace. The little girl squirmed until her father set her down to join her brother. "They recently found evidence that suggests that this site may have been a stop on the Underground Railroad." "Really?" "It's up to the scholars to debate it, but they discovered human remains buried in the backyard last summer. The medical examiner determined the bones to be over 150 years old and of African-American descent. Did you know that Chagrin Road, just a few blocks south of here, was a known route up to Canada?" "That's amazing." The specter of the dead bodies didn't seem to chill the woman's enthusiasm in the slightest. The husband was less enthusiastic. "How did they find them?" "Digging in the backyard." The agent waved her hand. "Must have been quite a shock. Of course, they called the police right away when they found bones." "What did they do with them?" The husband cast a suspicious eye toward the backyard. The 2 children went tearing down the hall into the next room. "They're not still out there, are they?" "Of course not. Everything was done by the book, I assure you. It was quite a process, really. The police brought in the anthropology department of Case Western Reserve University to perform a full-site investigation. It turns out that the old foundations of one of the North Union Shaker settlement buildings is located on this site. They spent 3 months digging around back there, preserving what they could. They gave the remains a proper burial at Lakeview Cemetery, from what I understand. They wrote all about it in the paper, so in a way, this house is famous." The real estate agent grinned like she'd just handed them a prize. Sell it as a positive. That's what her boss had explained weeks earlier in the foyer. It's not a stigmatized property. It's a landmark. You may want to look into getting the house registered as a historic landmark. The husband nodded slowly. "Interesting." Relieved to have the explanations over with, the agent continued the tour into the first bedroom. Now keep in mind when you look at the bedrooms that the closets are smaller than you'll find in newer homes, but I think the extra space here more than makes up for it. Hunter's old room basked in the warm sun streaming in through the window shears. The two children came squealing back, chasing each other and then their own shadows, which danced on the floor. The two parents moved on to the next room. "Wally, watch your sister." Wally nodded his little head and stomped on his sister's shadow. Once his parents were out of sight, the boy spun slowly in the wondrous room. The fireplace stood at one end, then windows, built-in bookshelves, and the closet door. Curious, the boy walked over and opened the closet with his little sister in tow. Inside, Benny's angry pencil marks had been painted over in a tasteful gray. Hunter's mother had insisted it was the only way they'd sell the house. The dead girl lay buried there under the latex, along with Ava's lonely musings. Wally stared up at the towering walls. "Look, Annie, look," he whispered. "There's a secret message." The toddler stumbled in. "Where?" "Here." He pointed to the inside wall next to the door. The boy couldn't read all the words just yet, but he ran a finger over the letters, written in thin black ink, with reverence. "Welcome to our Rawlingswood. Please fill this house with life and love, and forgive the ghosts that trespass here, for this was the home of believers and runaways, and it does not belong just to you. It belongs to the Rawlings, Bells, and Klussmans. It belongs to the Turners and Spielmans. It belongs to the dead and the moved away. So if you see Walter in the attic, tell him you're sorry. If you find Benny in the closet, tell him you believe him. If you hear Toby in the night, tell him you love him. We welcome your ghosts, so be a good host. And perhaps we'll all meet in the end." We hope you have enjoyed our presentation of No One's Home by D.M. Pulley, performed by Emily Sutton Smith. Performance copyright 2019 by Brilliance Publishing, Inc. All rights reserved. For further information concerning this program or other Brilliance audio titles, please call the following toll-free number, 1-800-222-3225, or visit our website at www.brilliancepublishing.com. No part of this recording may be played for an audience or reproduced in any form. It may not be streamed, downloaded, broadcast, or copied without written permission. Address all inquiries to Brilliance Audio, P.O. Box 887, Grand Haven, Michigan, 49417.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.